Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel. My name is Cassie, and today we're going to be going through a list of 16 sewing patterns for beginner sewists. Now, whether or not you're a beginner, it doesn't really matter. These sewing patterns are for everyone, but I did specifically curate them with beginners in mind. I've also included 9 free patterns mixed in within these 16 patterns, so you will have to watch the whole video to get them all, but I definitely think it's worth it, so stay tuned for that. Now, before we get into it, if you are not yet subscribed, I would really love if you do that. This is a space where I make my own clothes and I share that process with you, knitting, sewing, all that good stuff. So if that's something that you're into, then you're definitely going to want to hit subscribe. And if this is a video that you enjoy, then I would appreciate a thumbs up because it really helps me with the YouTube algorithm. Let's get into the sewing patterns because I think there's going to be quite a few, and this video is going to take forever if we don't just jump right in. So let's go. These are divided into 2 categories. We have very beginner, so this is like you're just learning how to sew, or we also have the sort of advanced beginner, adventurous beginner category. Basically, you've made a couple patterns and you want to try to test out your skills a little bit more. But anyone can make these, you just may be learning more skills in the more advanced ones. That's it, really. So number 1 is the LB pullover by Paper Theory. And this is one that I've been seeing a lot lately, probably because it's winter, and so all of the turtlenecks and sweaters and pullovers are making their way onto my Instagram feed. But I really love this one. What I think is really cool about it is it's made for absolute beginners. Like, they say that in the pattern itself. And it's also constructed in a way that is not only beginner friendly, but you can make it either in a woven fabric or in a knit fabric. So if it's your first sewing pattern ever, you may want to make it in a linen, maybe like a heavyweight linen. And then as you advance, maybe you want to try to make it in a knit fabric, or you can go right in and make it in like a fleece. I think that would be pretty easy to do and also really cozy for the winter. Or also like a French terry would be really nice. Any of those sort of like fuzzy fabrics that are like a soft hand and super warm, I think will be perfect for this. Next one is the Jude beanie pattern, and I always like to include a hat pattern or a small pattern when I do pattern roundups, because I think for beginners, having that small project is really key. You want to sort of stack up those small wins. I made bucket hats as my first sort of project and then kind of expanded from there. And I think for winter time, a beanie like this, there's enough skills that, you can play around with lining and, doing smaller seams and all of that stuff and working with knit fabrics, but it's also small and relatively contained and probably pretty easy to sew up, so you'll have that satisfaction. And you can also repeat it, make a couple and see how it makes you feel. Get used to that process and then move on to something that's maybe a little bit bigger. So that's why I put the Jude beanie on here. Plus, bonus, you don't have to knit a hat, but you can still have that handmade hat experience. So Jude beanie looks awesome, super cozy. Kind of tempted to make this myself. Number 3 is the Donovan skirt. And now, honestly, for me, I don't really consider skirts meant for the winter, but I am leaning more into wearing dresses and skirts in the winter time with appropriate layers and making them in appropriate fabrics. So I can see this with in a wool. I feel like that would be really cozy and really nice as well. But I wanted to put a pattern from Helen's Closet because she is such a good pattern designer, and I think that beginner sewists should try out her patterns. If not this one, then look at some of her other ones, because she is so good at walking you through the process, making sure that she's explaining all the steps really clearly. I love her pattern so much, and so I thought that this was a really good entry-level pattern that can kind of transition through the seasons really easily. You can make this in the springtime or in the wintertime, layer it appropriately. Like I said, use different fabrics, whatever it is, but I wanted to include this because her patterns are really, really good for beginners. So if you don't use this one for, one of your first patterns, definitely try something from Helen's Closet. You will not regret that. Number 4 is the Fleur robe from Mood Fabrics, and this is a free pattern. I wanted to include a robe pattern because they are super forgiving in their fit, and they're also relatively easy to construct. There's no zippers or buttons or any of that, so it's a pretty straightforward design, and also, if you do mess it up, you can just wear it around at home, and it's really not a big deal. It doesn't need to be super beautiful, And you can also really upcycle it with, you can use towels from home, but if you are going to use towels, beware because they kind of explode when you cut them, so just know it might be a little messy, and have a vacuum on hand. But you can make them in a variety of different materials. Like I said, toweling would be super sweet, or fleece, flannel, so many good options. And I would think for winter, having a nice cozy robe is just the best feeling ever. So I wanted to include this one, free robe pattern, you can't go wrong. Number 5 is the June dress from Hubbarding, and I love her patterns so much. I made one of her patterns, I think it was my first dress that I ever made, and honestly it did not turn out. It was not really the vibe, but I really enjoyed making it, and I really thought that for a first pattern, it was so easy to follow, really simple instructions, and also there were very little pattern pieces, and that is something that you really want when you are a beginner. I think this dress looks more complicated than it actually is. Plus, her instructions are super clear. She also makes herself available to beginners or, to sewists who are making her patterns. She says that you can contact her if you get tripped up at all, which I think is amazing. And she says right on her patterns that they're meant to be for beginners. So, even if this maybe feels a little bit more advanced for you, if you take your time with it, you can probably figure it out. I know that you can figure it out. I love this dress as a transitional piece. You can make it in warmer fabrics, or you can also just make it in linen and layer it really easily. It's kind of forgiving enough in the body. It's got a lot of positive ease, so you can layer it really comfortably. I think it's such a great pattern. It's classic, it's floaty, it's really great because the shape is not quite restricting, so you can make it and even take it in a little bit as you go, just to play around with proportions and how it fits you and all that. So I think this is a really awesome beginner-friendly pattern. Number 6 is the Monroe turtleneck from Tessuti, and this is a sewing community staple. You will see this all over the internet in the wintertime, and for a good reason. It's, for one, Tessuti, their instructions are super, super good. Mwah, like chef's kiss, so good. Really easy to follow, and also the turtleneck itself, I think it has 3 pattern pieces, really easy, and 3, 4, anyways, very minimal pattern pieces and really simple construction, and it's just such a basic. And this one is designed with a lot of flowiness through the body, but you can always, as you get more comfortable with making it, adjust it based on how you want it to fit you. Number 7 is the Knox pinafore from Seamwork, and it is a free pattern, but you do have to join Seamwork to get it. But I do recommend at least, joining Seamwork for a month or 2 and seeing how you like it. They have amazing database of patterns and a lot of tutorials and videos and a community to help walk you through anything you need. So I definitely recommend checking that out. But I love this pinafore. Even though it kind of looks summery, I think it's a piece that is super transitional and can kind of be worn year-round. Now we're moving into the confident beginner category, and as I mentioned, the beginner category or very beginner category is for those, in my opinion, who maybe you are starting from scratch, you've never made a pattern before, or this is one of your first couple patterns. That's sort of for you, really basic simple construction. And then going into the confident beginner category or adventurous beginner category, you're starting to have a few more techniques, maybe buttonholes, maybe zippers, stuff like that. All that aside, let's go into number 8. It is the cardigan coat from All Well Patterns, and I really love this. It's one of the first patterns that I kind of came across, and you've probably seen it all over Pinterest because it's pretty pinnable and just so beautiful. I think the construction is, again, pretty forgiving. It's got that wrap style, which works on so many different people. You can also, it's a choose your own adventure type of difficulty. It's meant for confident beginners, but it can also go up to intermediate depending on your skills. If you want to quilt it, that's something that you can totally do. And there's a lot of different options. You can add padding, add batting to make it thicker. You can line it. Lots of really good things that you can do with this, or you can just make it in one fabric and have it as more of a cardigan. It's totally up to you, and so it can kind of transition with you throughout your skills, and you can make this as easy or as difficult as you want. If you were to upcycle a quilt, for example, which is really popular right now, this is definitely a good pattern to do that because it's already quilted. You don't have to do anything. I've seen it also using a wool blanket, which I think is a really cool upcycle. There's lots of different options for this one, and that's why I wanted to include it. It's a really like solid staple in a sewing repertoire. Number 9 is another free pattern, and it is the Peppermint Lounge set. I think this one is a really awesome pattern to have. Number 1, it's like a 2-in-1 and it's free. Crazy. But I think it can be so versatile. For one, yeah, it can definitely be a loungewear set. You can make this in a linen or like a soft cotton. You can upcycle like a bed sheet. And I feel like having a bed sheet and upcycling it into like a loungewear set is perfect. They just kind of go together really well. But you can also make this in like a heavyweight linen and have it in the winter. You can make it so that the top is like, you know, an everyday top rather than a lounge top. Same with the bottoms. There's so many different things that you can do with it. Number 10 is the grain line Pharaoh dress. I love the shape of this. For one, I really like that it doesn't have any zippers or buttons. You just pull it on, but it still has some really nice shaping. So it's not your like classic boxy, sort of like boxy top or like empire waist dress. It is definitely fitted through the bodice and kind of has that lovely A-line. And I think that this is a shape that works really well for a lot of people. And I think you can also have fun with playing with this dress in different fabrics. It can be, you know, made shorter sleeve or sleeveless for the summertime. It can be a longer sleeve for the winter time. I think there's a ton of different options. And I think for this one, the shaping of it is a really key like design detail. You can start to learn how to get, you know, the nice sort of like fitted look without having to add zippers. And I think having that construction is super smart and really awesome for beginners to learn. Number 11 are the mountain pose pants, and this is another free pattern. This is a yoga, like a classic yoga style pant. When I think of these pants, I immediately think of, well, for one, I think of my like 2010 self, even earlier, early 2000s, lining up at like the Lululemon sample sale to like get my hands on pants that looked exactly like this, and then also seeing Emma Chamberlain wear them, a very similar pair to these. And so now you can make your own because they are in style and honestly just a classic, super comfy. I love the cross front sort of V shaped in the front of the pant, but you can also make it with a straight waistline. You know, it definitely depends. You can even see this in like a thicker ribbed fabric. That would be really nice. So I think that this is a good, like honestly, I want to make these pants because they just look solid. Like they look really comfy. They're also just honestly, like they look like the perfect yoga pants. So yeah, mountain pose pants. Hey June handmade. Free online. Number 12 is the Nino jacket from the fabric store, and this is another free pattern. I just love the minimal design of this. I think it is so classic, and this is meant for linen, but you can make it in, you know, whatever other woven fabric. But I think beginning with linen is a good start because it is a really nice fabric to work with. It's really easy for beginners to work with. It just, you know, it washes up really nicely. You don't have to be like too ginger with how you take care of it. It's pretty sturdy, and it just sews up really well. So I definitely recommend finding like a good quality linen and sewing with that because you will not be disappointed. It is lovely to work with, and I think this like lovely minimal design from the Nino is just, it's beautiful. I think this is like one of the nicest free patterns that I've ever seen. Okay, we're on a roll with the free patterns here. This is the slouchy cardigan, and this is from Peppermint magazine again. And this is like the perfect cocoon. I keep saying perfect, but honestly, I mean, I designed this list to be perfect. It's like that cocoon shaped cardigan. I immediately have pictured this in like an oatmeal color waffle knit. That just sounds like the coziest thing ever. Or like a French terry or like a sweatshirt sort of material, I think would be super, super cozy, like a nice brushed sweat fleece and like a cream. And you would just like wrap it around you. This looks perfect. I remember like Aritzia had a cardigan like this way back in like the early 2000s, like 2010s-ish era, and they were super popular. And I think this kind of oversized, like very huggy shape is going to come back in, and I think this is a really great one to achieve that. And I don't think it would be too difficult to make. It looks actually quite simple. It's not a lot of pattern pieces, and I think it would just be a really satisfying sew, something that you would have around for quite a while. Flannel too would be a good one for it. Yeah, there's so many good options to make this, and in like all the neutral colors, so you can just have warm blanket sweaters for all winter long. Number 14 is a dog jacket. Like, who would have thought? I don't know if this is like exactly beginner, but I feel like you could do it. Like, I feel like I put it like low, like kind of far into the list, so that by the time you were to get to this, you would definitely be able to make it. And also, like, you know, you can do anything you want. And if you want to make your dog a sweet jacket using this free pattern, I think you should. That's really all I have to say. I wanted to include this because I don't have a dog, but I would love to make this for a dog. Maybe my parents' dog for Christmas next Christmas. Anyways, you should, if you have a dog and your dog needs a coat, you should make this. Anyways, let's get into we're almost there. We're almost at the end of the list. Let's finish. I'm pumping myself up. Okay. This next one is easy to pump myself up for because number 15 is the Marlowe cardigan. And this is like, okay, I feel like I'm always kind of trying to hack. Like, I'm a knitter, but it takes a long time to knit a sweater or a hat or a scarf or anything. So when I find a pattern that can like mimic what knitting does, like you have a cardigan, but you can make it in a sweater material, but you don't have to knit it, but it kind of looks knitted. That is the perfect cardigan for me. And when the Marlowe came out, I bought it immediately because I was like, yes, this is for me. I haven't made it yet. I have it cut out and it's ready to go. But yeah, this cardigan, you can make it in a ton of different knit fabrics. It's meant for low stretch knits, I believe, so it should make it pretty friendly for beginners. And True Bias also has like really clear instructions and really awesome sew along tutorials on their blog. So if you don't want to knit a cardigan, but you want a knit cardigan effect, go for this one. Marlowe. Beautiful. I don't know what this hand shape was. It was kind of, anyways. Last one. Number 16 is another free pattern. Ending on that free note, Pearl Soho has a quilted vest, and these are really popular right now. Like, I've been seeing a ton of quilted vests. I made one myself. I made a whole video about it. Didn't turn out exactly how I wanted, but it kind of looks like this. And honestly, it wasn't that hard to make. It was maybe time consuming, but it wasn't that challenging. So I think, I put this one very, very last on the list because it is maybe a little bit more challenging, but I think that, by the time we get to this point, like, you can handle it. You can do anything you want. I think the Pearl Soho free vest pattern is a really good one if you want to challenge your skills a bit and, try a bunch of like different things like making bias binding, quilting, all that good stuff. But, I think it's probably 3 or 4 pattern pieces, like really, really simple. So that's why that's on there. And I would love to know if you guys try it out. Actually, I would love to know if you try out any of these patterns. Are there any of these that you haven't heard of or that you really want to try? Let me know in the comments. I would love to see what you're going to be making. If you want to know what I'm planning on making this year, I made a video all about it. Or you can subscribe to stay tuned to my future makes. I would really appreciate that. I put a lot of time into these videos, especially doing all the research and all of that. So subscribing and liking, commenting, all that really good stuff helps me out. And if you want to hang out outside of YouTube, I'm on Instagram and TikTok. I'm pretty active on all those spaces, so we can be together all the time if you want. It's whatever you want. It's up to you. Thank you all for being here. I really appreciate it. I will see you on Sunday for our casual chatting with me, knitting with me, whatever you feel like doing while you watch me knit and chat. That's up to you. I will see you then. Bye.